I'm presenting my study, which is assessing the TOD policies and its implementation process in cases of Ahmedabad and Delhi. Let's start with understanding the problems of any typical Indian city's problem. It's of course worsening traffic congestion, then unaffordable mobility options, environmental weakening, Delhi is a classic example, then social inequalities, lack of safety, especially for women and pedestrians. The main reason for these problems are use of more cars and demotion of public transport, which is caused due to having segregated land uses, large urban block perimeter which discourage walking, supply of extra wide roads. We always plan for cars and not for the pedestrian. We have a tradition for not to give pedestrian. Then lack of street infrastructure, no proper footpaths. And hence, our cities are becoming more auto-oriented. And it's all creating health problems and degradation of quality of life. So therefore, we need a paradigm shift from auto-oriented to transit-oriented. This need has also been identified in NUTP, after which many Indian cities, they have tried to incorporating TOD in their planning process. Delhi and Ahmedabad being an earliest examples of TOD, we can understand their TOD policies so that we can understand the actual on-ground complexities to implement TOD in India. The aim of the study is to assess TOD policies and its implementation process in Delhi, Ahmedabad only, and with the objective to examine and understand TOD as a concept first, then to examine TOD implementation process in terms of execution pace, and finally to identify the barriers and enablers in TOD implementation process. The scope of the study is limited to the jurisdiction boundaries of Delhi and Ahmedabad. The study is based on a qualitative analysis, which is based on a comparative study of Delhi-Ahmedabad TOD policies. So let's start with understanding what is TOD. There is no one definition of TOD. Many authors has defined it in different ways. But though we can say TOD is a high-density, mixed-use kind of development near a transit service or around a transit station, so that we can promote walking, cycling, and public transportation. Its characteristics are it is a compact development near a transit, a high-quality transit. It provides us affordable housing options and affordable transportation options as well. It enhances the your connectivity from origin to destination. It has its own benefits from household, environmental, economic, and fiscal benefits, which includes reduction of cost of driving, then improved access, mobility options, affordable and comfortable mobility options. In India, when we talk about land use planning and transport planning, they never work together. They work always in an isolation, which is a very big reason of having this congestion problem in our cities. Also in India, our transit has, most of the time it has been introduced to the areas which are already developed, and we have to infit our TOD in this scenario. So redevelopment in India need to be motivated to have a good quality of TOD. Let's understand Delhi. Delhi has an area of approx 1,400 square kilometers with a population of 16.7 million. There is a model, MPD is seeking a modal shift of 80 to 20, from 45 to 55. Ahmedabad is also a sprawling city, and we have to control the sprawl so that to avoid the future problems. It has an area of 466 square kilometer in AMC and 1,877 square kilometer of ORDA. Its population density is 120 pph within AMC limits. Also, when we are talking about MPD housing chapter has mentioned that there is a need of 24 lakhs dwelling unit, out of which 50 to 55% of dwelling unit has to cater EWS and LIG. And TOD is supposed to provide that slab of affordable housing also. Delhi has its first network of MRTS in India with a stretch of 400 approximate kilometers. Ahmedabad has largest Janmark network of BRTS with 88 kilometers. When we are talking about TOD, we have to define an influence zone first for extensive development. So Ahmedabad is having 200-meter buffers along the BRTS corridor, the proposed metro corridor, Eastern Highway Density Corridor, and also to 132 feet ring road. Along it, a 200-meter buffer has been kept for TOD development. In Delhi, it is 500-meter buffer along the existing and proposed MRTS corridor. So when we are looking at Delhi's influence zone, it is 500-meter along the metro corridor and approximately 400 square kilometer. We are putting this much of land in Delhi for TOD. So the question is, are we really ready for this much of TOD? Do we have market of this much, this much of development in Delhi? There are also some informal discussions within the DDA and the UTPEC department, which is handling this project. So they were discussing that either it should be 500 or 800, because 500 is itself a very expensive land to cater EWS or LIG. So how we can have the affordability slab in that area? But still, after those discussions and strong rationals of including 800 meter as a buffer zone, DDA has gone with 500 meter as a buffer zone. So again, the question is, do we need to provide TOD all over, or can we just select some stations according to its readiness of market, and then can go step by step towards TOD while designing one station, maybe then next, according to its readiness. When we talk about TOD regulations, Delhi and Ahmedabad both has given 4 FSI, but there is a minimum requirement of comprehensive area for the comprehensive scheme in Delhi TOD. It has to be minimum of 1 hectare. There is a catch in this, because in Delhi, most of the areas are having 100 or 50 to 200 square meters of plots. And pooling all those lands for having 1 hectare of comprehensive scheme is difficult, because you have no good land pooling mechanism in Delhi so far. Then there is a ground coverage of 40% and roads and public spaces 20%, which has to be handed over to local authorities, but its development has to be done, or maintenance has to be done by developers, private entities. There is no height restrictions. In Ahmedabad, they are restricting the height according to the width of adjacent road. When we are talking about the mixed use component of TOD, Delhi again is providing strict numbers to the percentage. 30% residential, 10% commercial, 10% social is the mandatory component of mixed use in TOD, and the rest 50% can go according to zonal land use plans. In Ahmedabad, ORDA has defined a list of desirable land uses, so it can come according to the market. They don't have a fixed percentage, but they have the list. This land uses, you can have it in your TOD projects. Population density is one of the very important component of TOD, because when we are talking about compact development, it is not always about having density in terms of built up, but it is about having a high population density. So Delhi is fixing the unit sizes of that 30% strict mandatory component of residential, so that to ensure the small units for EWS and some for MIGs. But in case of Ahmedabad, there is no such provision of to increase population density. So there are chances in Ahmedabad that the more lavish units can come up in TOD, and non-car users will come in the in the proximity to transit, which can defeat the purpose of having TOD there. So we come to a conclusion to this, that Delhi has some strict and stringent norms to TOD, while Ahmedabad is having a comparatively more market-friendly approach. For affordability, Delhi again fixing the sizes of units in that 30%, 50% is 50% for LIG, 62 square meters per unit, and rest 50% is for EWS, 32 to 40 square meters, to ensure the affordability for LIG and MIG, which is again very strict, and I don't know how market will go with this. If there is no market with it, so it will restrict the developers to participate in TOD. Provision of rental housing is there, and extra mandatory FAR, 15% FAR for EWS is there, which we have very good examples in Gurgaon, that we already have, in Huda, we already have a fixed percentage of having, extra EWS FAR, but that stock, most of the cases, that stock is vacant because of the pressure from elite side of the residential compound. In Ahmedabad, again, there is no such policy, no such provision of affordability in TOD, transit-oriented zone, but they have a different affordable housing zone, and they are also having this provision of affordable housing in TP schemes. But not having affordable housings in TOZ is like, they will of course defeat the purpose if you are not having non-car users in transit-oriented zone. So to whom it will cater? Thoroughfares, of course, we ended up having a gated community kind of scenario in Delhi and in Ahmedabad also. So Delhi is trying to solve this matter by providing center-to-center distance, maximum center-to-center distance for pedestrian and vehicular network. It is 250 for vehicular and 150 for pedestrian network. And Ahmedabad is also saying the setbacks will be used for pedestrian access, though it has its own possible threats of encroachment, like parking, vending, which is a common scenario in India. And it can, of course, restrict the entry when in case of some emergency. Then for parking, Delhi has announced 1.33 ECS per 100 square meter built up, and it is unbundled from the property. That means it will be affordable for non-car users. And 50% of the parking will be shared parking, which is a good initiative by Delhi government. Ahmedabad has relaxed 10% of parking for commercial parking, which will promote public transport, of course. And Delhi parking policy is mostly one size fits to all, because when we are having a city center, it will have its own different demand for parking in comparison to maybe commercial TOD or the residential dominating TOD. Then when we talk about finance, TOD and financing TOD is a challenge in India. For LVC, Delhi has tried to solve it by, earned by FSI charges, which would be uniform charges for all the users, for commercial as well as for residential, which can affect the residential prices adversely. And in Ahmedabad, they are saying the FSI, additional FSI can be purchased by paying 40% of the Jantri rate, which is quite okay, because Jantri rate will be different for residential and of course for commercial. Delhi has not been identified any financial model for its TOD, though there are some possible expected resources, sale of FSI, external development charges, betterment charges. In Delhi, they are preparing local area plans in which they are specifically identifying the financial model for that particular LAP. Local area plan includes overall mobility, pedestrian accessibility, transport network, public open spaces, amenity infrastructures, and of course, it tries to enhance the overall neighborhood character. The need of LAP has been identified in Delhi, but because of the lack of capacity in municipal corporation, it has not been prepared yet. Though in Ahmedabad, we have a very coordinated working process of Ahmedabad, ODA and AMC. This is the map showing distribution of LAPs in Ahmedabad. So out of 46 LAPs, 10 LAPs has been prepared, and it will be submitted to the government by the end of November this year. While Ahmedabad is having this local area planning approach, Delhi is trying to approach people to promote TOD by having pilot projects. Its very first project was Kadkaduma project. It is a site has been identified in Kadkaduma area, which has one existing metro station, one proposed metro station. It is in the vicinity of Anand Vihar railway station and also Anand Vihar metro station. So you can see there are plots of approx 100 square meter to 300 square meter. That means if it is not a government land, if any private developer wants to build here a TOD, it must be difficult for him to take consent of this much of families to come, to pool the lands and to have a 1 hectares of minimum 1 hectares of comprehensive schemes. Then there were 3 design proposals were analyzed, out of which first is business as usual, then based on the densification policies of MPD, and then final one was on TOD principles. And the final TOD principles has been decided for this project. The layout plan has been approved by governing body in principle, and the MOU has been signed by DDA and NBCC. NBCC will be responsible for building this pilot projects. But pilot projects are supposed to be something which, promote TOD in that area. But according to the JLL study, it is saying 1 BHK will cost you 60 lakhs and 2 BHK will cost you 1 crores. That is nowhere in the affordability slabs of LIG or MIG. So how it will create an example, good example in Delhi is the question. When we come to implementation strategies, Delhi has started with having a city-level policy in MPD, and then framing TOD regulations. Influence zonal plans has to be prepared. Then having single window clearance, which is still in a gray zone, and then formation of competent authority, which will be under local urban body, and then identify and propose pilot projects. It is the implementation strategy of to implement TOD in case of Delhi. While when we look at Ahmedabad, it is about having city-level policies, first of all, then identification for the need for LAP. And it has been mandated in GTPUD Act so that it will facilitate AMC in order to make and to prepare LAP for any TOD area. Then 4 FSI has been ensured and people are started enjoying this 4 FSI. So when we look at the strategies, Ahmedabad has started, building up something on TOZ. But in Delhi, they all are discussing, and still the approval process is not clear. Approval authority has not been framed. It's not in in a structural body yet. So how to participate in TOD is still a question for developer entity. From 2008 onwards till 2016, we just have a policy and regulations for Delhi. And like 8 years, only discussion and discussion and discussion is happening. Nothing on ground has been implemented. While in Ahmedabad, in 3 years, out of 49 LAPs, 10 LAPs has been prepared. And of course, the built-up has also been started. We have 5 lakh square meters built up already available in TOZ in Ahmedabad. The main reasons in Delhi why it is taking so much of time for Delhi, because of course, we have multiple government there. Also, their targets were not defined. TOD has become a desk exercise for them. A lack of integration, lack of capacity in municipal bodies, lack of political will, and of course, misinterpretation, because every stakeholder has its different perspective towards TOD. Developer has its own, then maybe a transport planner has its own, so it always clashes, and to bring all of them on a same page is a challenge. So I would like to conclude my study in a way that, of course, these two cities are very much different, and they too both have different approaches. While Delhi has a centralized approach and very stringent norms it has, Ahmedabad is more market-friendly, and TOD institutional framework is in Delhi is very complex. While in Ahmedabad, ORDA and AMC working in a very collaborative manner, and involvement of private sector is of course a key factor. Delhi has a pilot approach, while Ahmedabad is having local area approach and a guided approach. Delhi has one size fits to all. Of course, in every sense, when we look at TOD regulations or maybe parking regulations, it's all one size fits to all. Though in Delhi, we have so much diversity, we cannot have one policy, not even for TOD, for any policy, we cannot have one size fits to all policy in Delhi especially. And in Ahmedabad, it is doing a great job because the city level policies has been simplified at local level, and of course the coordinated working of AMC and ORDA.